Welcome to the Post Credits Podcast, where we talk about movies after the credits roll. My name is Jesse, and this is a solo episode. Scheduling just so had it that we weren't sure if we were going to be able to upload a video, like an episode, this week. We would normally do a spoiler review every week, but just scheduling, we weren't sure if we were going to get it to the table. And so the decision was either not have something come out this week at all, or risk not something like not having something come out, or I had this time available to me to record some episode and make sure that we would have something out over the weekend. So this isn't a typical episode of the Post Credits Podcast, but this is one that I have been wanting to do for a while, and it is timely. So I figured it is worth doing, even just on my own. And that is because today we will be talking about the nominees for the 2026 Oscars, celebrating the films that came out in 2025. Um, the Oscars are probably my favorite thing. I really do love the Oscars. And so I always like going through and selecting from the nominees what the Academy has decided to nominate, what what movie I would pick, and what movie I think is going to win. And so that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be going through each category, not really in any particular order, but I'm going to be jumping around here and there and giving my pick for what will win or what I think will win, and then what I want to win. And then when the ceremony comes out, you can check my work and see if I did good. I did this last year as well. I believe out of 24 categories, I got 18 correct. So I don't remember if that was the exact number, but it sounds about true. So let's just see if we can break that record. And yeah, hopefully you'll stick around with me, even though my wonderful co-hosts are currently not present. So there's a lot of races happening here that are very one-sided, and I want to save some of those for a little bit later because typically the nominees themselves are interesting, but there's one very obvious standout. So I'm going to start off with one that's has an interesting race going on, but is not necessarily a toss-up, and that is one of the two music categories. I'm going to be starting with Best Original Song. I'm going to start out all of these categories with a list of nominees. So the nominees for Best Original Song are Dear Me from Diane Warren Relentless, music and lyrics by Diane Warren. Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters, music and lyrics by EJ, Mark Sonnenblick, Jung Gyu Kwak, Yuhan Lee, Hee Dong Nam, Jung Hoon Seo, and Teddy Park. I Lied to You from Sinners, music and lyrics by Raphael Sadiq and Ludwig Göransson. Sweet Dreams of Joy from Viva Verdi, music and lyrics by Nicholas Pike. And Train Dreams from Train Dreams, music by Nick Cave and Bryce Dessner, lyrics by Nick Cave. So this has been narrowed down to two competitors ever since the Academy made a really controversial announcement. See, for almost every year of the Academy Awards, they would do live performances of the nominated songs. They stopped doing that last year, which I blame Emilia Perez for. Emilia Perez, which I will be referencing a bunch because it was one of the most interesting films from last year. It got 13 nominations while being completely tone deaf and insensitive to pretty much every group represented in its cast. It was about a transgender Mexican cartel leader who reforms after transitioning, while managing to be completely ignorant of the trans experience and completely ignorant about Mexican culture. It was directed by Jacques Audiard, a Frenchman who does not speak Spanish and basically had no regard for the complexities of the movie that he was making. He would go on record saying that there were no talented Mexican actors that could pull off the roles because he, quite controversially, did not cast Mexican actors in any of his roles for playing Mexican people. And then the lead actress who was nominated for that movie, Carla Sofia Gascon, who plays the titular character, would have some pretty racist things to say about Brazil, as many Brazilian fans were very publicly pulling for the Brazilian nominee that year in Best Leading Actress, Fernanda Torres. That movie had such a bad fallout. Nobody liked it, and nobody really liked the songs from it, combined with the fact that the most popular musical from last year was Wicked. And Wicked has no original songs, so none of them could be nominated for Best Original Song. But those were the songs everyone was listening to. Those were the songs everybody wanted to see performed. And they actually replaced the live song performances with a Wicked medley performance with Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. So it was clear, and the Academy was aware of this, that no one wanted to hear the two nominated songs from Amelia Perez. One of them ended up winning. And everybody wanted to hear the non nominated songs from Wicked. So now the question is, do we continue with the new precedent set, or do we go back and just do all the performances and acknowledge that it was Amelia Perez's fault? Their idea was to do only performances of Golden and I Lied to You, the K-pop Demon Hunter song and the Sinners song, which is a terrible idea because you're effectively narrowing the race down to two contestants now. And the other three contestants, as much as I like some of the songs that are nominated here, they were never going to win just against Golden. I mean, I Lied to You has a potential shot of winning here, and K-pop Demon Hunters and Sinners are the most popular movies on this list by far. So they might split the vote somewhat. You might have people voting for the popular songs. But Golden was an international sensation when it came out. And basically, like, I don't see anything losing to it. I Lied to You is a very, very good song, but it was nowhere near as big as Golden. And what we'll find in a lot of categories is that a lot of times it's more about what continues to be in the conversation rather than what necessarily has the merit for it. Now, in this case, I think Golden is the best song in this lineup. So I would vote for Golden, and I do want Golden to win. And I do think Golden will win. So those are my two things. But I want to go into some of the nominees here. And full disclosure, I have seen 47 out of 50 nominated movies. The three that I haven't seen are Viva Verdi, so I've not seen the song here. I have not seen The Voice of Hindra Hobb, which is a international feature nominee, and I've not seen Arco, which is an animated feature nominee. So I only have 47 out of 50 nominated movies watched. So keep that in mind, and I will point out those holes when we get to them. So when I say that Golden, I want to win, and Golden I think is going to win, keep in mind that that's having only listened to 4 out of 5 of the nominees in context. Now, Dear Me is the one I really want to focus on. That's from Diane Warren Relentless, which is a documentary about Diane Warren. And Diane Warren is always worth mentioning whenever she comes up in the Oscars, and that happens quite a bit. She has about 16 nominations or something crazy like that, all without a win. She is nominated in Best Original Song constantly, and it's not controversial to say that she should have won for Till It Happens to You. That was, in my opinion, still her best song. And she gets nominated just about every year. She's got good industry connections, and she's also just a stellar songwriter. I mean, she is very, very, very prolific, and she writes a lot of really good stuff. So she continuously gets nominated without winning anything, and it's kind of sad because I think she does deserve it at some point. Unfortunately, not this year, but maybe next year. And as much as I am rooting for her, like, I think Golden is the best song here. I would love to see it win. If Diane Warren somehow sneaks out a victory, potentially due to vote splitting between Golden and I Lied to You, because those are the two popular songs, if Diane Warren manages to sneak out a victory, I will not be mad at all. I know a lot of people have commented on the documentary saying, like, it's just an advertisement for her to win an Oscar, and she's just annoyed that she hasn't won an Oscar. I think that those criticisms are a little overblown. I just tend to disagree with them, actually. But I don't think that she should win it for this movie. Dear Me is not her best song. That being said, it will have been a career award, and she's already won an honorary Oscar for her career, which kind of makes the career award a little less enticing of an option, which is why I'm not picking her. But I wouldn't be upset if she won. Let's move on to another category. I'm just going to do the next music category. Why not? This is original score. The nominees for original score are Begonia, composed by Jerskin Fendrix, Frankenstein, composed by Alexandre Desplat, Hamnet, composed by Max Richter, One Battle After Another, composed by Johnny Greenwood, and Sinners, composed by Ludwig Göransson. And this is where we get to the core battle of the 2026 Oscars. The core battle is between One Battle After Another and Sinners. In almost every category, these two movies are competing. Sinners, on the one hand, is the most nominated movie of all time at the Oscars with 16 nominations. One Battle After Another has won every single precursor award with the exception of the actor awards. Things like Film Critics Circle Awards, some Academy Awards from other countries, particularly the British Academy Film and Television Awards, the BAFTAs. Things like the Indie Spirit Awards are typically very important, and the Guild Awards. What do people who do this stuff, what do they think does it best? Because a lot of times, not only are they voting on the Oscars from their specific branches, but just also it shows to maybe an untrained eye what's actually impressive in these movies, and then more trained eyes, when they look at it, like we kind of get a view into what they're seeing through those Guild Awards. Um, One Battle After Another has won every single one, basically, beginning from Film Critic Awards, back when the Critics Circle Awards were coming out. It's continued to win. It won Directors Guild, Producers Guild. The only real thing it lost was Actors Awards, which is the Acting Guild, the Screen Actors Guild, which it lost to Sinners, which gives Sinners just that little bit of hope that it might take some of these categories, including potentially original score. Because, and look, I've seen Begonia, Frankenstein, Hamnet. All of them have good scores. They don't stand out quite as much as One Battle After Another and Sinners. And there is also a little work of storyline here. Johnny Greenwood has been vying for an Oscar for a while, and he's been working with Paul Thomas Anderson. Paul Thomas Anderson's made some pretty great movies with Johnny Greenwood, and Johnny Greenwood's been scoring them. He's been nominated. He's not winning these things, unfortunately. So he has a little bit of a continuously denied narrative, which directly contrasts to Ludwig Göransson, who won an Oscar 2 years ago for his score for Oppenheimer, which was a fantastic score, but it casts a bit of a shadow over him winning for Sinners, right? A second Oscar. Now, in music categories, the Oscars are a little bit, it feels like they're a little bit less, uh, they're a little bit less restrained with giving a lot of Oscars to a very small number of people. Billie Eilish won, I think, 2 Oscars in 3 years, which was really surprising. So I feel like when it comes to people who make music for films, if you're really good, you're going to get a lot of Oscars. Look at John Williams, for example. John Williams has composed some of the greatest film scores of all time and kept getting nominated for them, to the point that when he was just doing a film score for Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny, he got an Oscar nomination for that. You could say whether or not he deserved it. Regardless, the industry tends to favor, in the music sphere, the people who do it really, really well, really, really often, which is why my pick for both want to win and will win is Sinners. Sinners, composed by Ludwig Göransson. The score is more inspired. Sinners is a vampire blues situation. It follows this group of enslaved people on a plantation. I mean, they're not officially enslaved according to, chattel slavery of the 1800s, but this is post-Reconstruction slavery. And they are opening this juke joint. These two twins, Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan. This really, really good performer, this young prodigy of the blues, played by Miles Caton, and a bunch of other characters, other nominated characters as well that we will get to. And then they're interrupted by vampires. And the whole score reflects a sort of bluesy nature. These are a lot of really big, bold instruments that you're not really likely to see in a film score because they really take over the scene. But Göransson really makes them work. These jazzy instruments that can really distract from a scene if done wrong. because they're so big and so bold and the sound they make is so in your face. It's not a traditional cinematic score. Johnny Greenwood's score sticks with you because it's simple and pervasive throughout the entire movie. One Battle After Another is a huge anxiety attack of a film. It follows Leonardo DiCaprio trying to rescue his daughter, played by Chase Infinity, from a racist colonel, racist army guy, played by Sean Penn. And the Johnny Greenwood's score is just very frantic piano played very often through the film, and there's small changes and other instruments get brought in as well, but it is always there and always kind of rushing your mind forward. And I prefer the score to Sinners. I think that they both the Sinners and One Battle After Another scores work in their own right, but I think Sinners, I found it at least more impressive, and I like listening to it a little bit more after the fact. Um, yeah, so Begonia, Frankenstein, Hamnet, One Battle After Another, and Sinners is a good cast of 5 nominees that will show you what the movies that are being nominated are like. What are the kinds of movies that they're nominating, and what are the movies that you're going to be seeing over and over again in this nominations list? There's a lot of repeat nominations, so I'm going to go to another category that widens out that circle a little bit, but while still sticking within the commonly accepted movies that are going to be big Oscar hauls in this ceremony, and that is achievement in casting. This is a new category for this year that people had a lot of different and varied expectations for. And I considered not predicting this category because who knows what it's going to be? It could be anything. I have decided still to predict it, and I'm going to share the 2 possible ways that you could take this. So the nominees for achievement in casting are Hamnet casting director Nina Gold, Marty Supreme casting director Jennifer Venditti, One Battle After Another casting director Cassandra Koulakundis, The Secret Agent casting director Gabriel Dominguez, and Sinners casting director Francine Meisler. So 2 movies that weren't in the previous category that you are going to want to keep in mind are Marty Supreme. Marty Supreme is very highly nominated, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding it in a lot of different areas, and I'll explain a lot of that later. The casting itself has some issues with it as well. But it's about a ping pong player named Marty Reisman, played by Timothy Chalamet, who, well, I mean, it's based on a real player named Marty Reisman, but the character in the movie is named Marty Mauser, and he is basically determined to be the best ping pong player in the world, and through that, the best athlete in the world. And he hinges everything on that goal, and things go wrong for him ultimately. um, that's a good movie. We have a weekly spoiler review up on that if you want to check it out. And then The Secret Agent is about this person that lives in not Japan, Brazil in the 1970s, played by Wagner Moura, and he has to navigate the country while it is rapidly going downwards into a spiral of fascism. You know, on a downward spiral into this really controlling fascism. And the movie, we learn more about the character and his relation to the government as it goes on. Some really harrowing stuff occurs in there. And yeah, so there are 2 ways to interpret casting, right? Casting can be taken as an ensemble award. What is an ensemble award is another question, right? Or does it just mean that what movie has the best performances across the board? If one person's really good and one person's really bad, that probably isn't like good for an ensemble award. But does that discredit the performance of the person who's really good? Is it an average? Is there like a lower level of competence that you're expecting from a good ensemble? So there's that theory, like it could just be an ensemble award. In which case, the most direct precursor to that award would seem to be the Actor Awards Best Ensemble in a Motion Picture Award, which went to Sinners. So if we're taking it to mean that, then what we would expect to win is Sinners. I'm going to take it the other way, though. Achievement in casting suggests that the casting director did something impressive with the casting of the movie, which to me means they found some talent that a lot of people didn't know about, and they found something in those people, or they went with some unconventional strategies that paid off. And there's an argument to be made that Sinners will and should win this category because, um, you know, like there's some people in there that are both a mix of really acclaimed and established actors like Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan, and then there's also a good mix of new talent in there, Miles Caton and Jack O'Connell in some of their first roles. I think that this award is going to go to Marty Supreme. And Marty Supreme, mostly because of how in your face the casting is. I mean, obviously there's Timothy Chalamet, but then you look at some of the other members of the cast, and we have Odessa A. Zion and Tyler the Creator and Kevin O'Leary. The thing is, having casted Kevin O'Leary has some political views that could be seen as contentious, that could provide a little bit of pushback to this movie's success, especially when it's nominated alongside a movie about the slow descent into fascism, a movie that is very much commenting on where we are now. Kevin O'Leary being in that sphere, I think, harms the movie more than does it good, which is why a lot of people say, like, One Battle After Another is going to win. Now, One Battle After Another is a great pick if you're just talking ensemble awards. There's a lot of characters in there, and they're all very good. But you look at, like, the impressive part of the casting, basically the impressive part is the casting of Chase Infinity in a major role. And Chase Infinity is great, but she's not Oscar nominated here, and a little bit of a spoiler, but she's not Oscar nominated. To be fair, nobody else from Marty Supreme really is, other than Timothy Chalamet. None of the impressive castings are nominated, but you look at, like, what could be considered impressive from this slate, none of the impressive castings are nominated here. Some of the unimpressive castings are nominated here. Or like some of the unimpressive castings aren't nominated. You'd expect Paul Mescal in Hamnet to be nominated, and he's not. So, like, when it comes to what's impressive from a casting perspective, I think to me it's Marty Supreme. And I want Marty Supreme to win because I think that that's a much more interesting direction to take the category as opposed to just an ensemble award. Okay, let's move on here. I'm gonna go to a category that should have some pretty fun nominees. And a category I didn't expect to have fun nominees. This is a makeup and hairstyling, best makeup and hairstyling. The nominees are Frankenstein, Mike Hill, Jordan Samuel, and Cleona Fury; Kokuho, Kyoko Toyokawa, Naomi Hibino, and Tadashi Nishimatsu; Sinners, Ken Diaz, Mike Fontaine, and Shunika Terry; The Smashing Machine, Kazuhiro Glenn Griffin, and Bjorn Rebane; and The Ugly Stepsister, Thomas Foldberg and Anne Catherine Sauerberg. So this is an interesting crop of films. Only two of those are movies that we've seen before, Sinners and Frankenstein. And then the others are, you've got Kokuho, which is a fun, it's a movie, a multi-generational epic about the Japanese art of kabuki, which is really interesting. And there are some movies here, and I'll probably say this again at least once or twice, and certainly for The Smashing Machine, but there's some movies here that I don't like, but I appreciate that they're nominated for technical aspects because I don't think it's the fault of the people working below the line that the people working above the line screwed up in some way. So it's not the makeup people's fault that The Smashing Machine has misogynist undertones. They did a really good job doing their part. Now, the movie can't be ignored. Like, you can't miss the forest for the trees here, but when we're talking about the nomination that The Smashing Machine has received, that kind of impartiality to the quality of the film And instead of making it, what movie did I like that happened to have this part of it, um, and instead going with what movie had the best this, regardless of how much I like other parts of it. That's kind of what I feel like the Oscars should be celebrating. So, which is why even movies I don't love, like Kokuho and Sinners, Kokuho and The Smashing Machine, um, I am excited to see nominated. Sinners, I love. It's my favorite movie of the year. So don't take that. Don't take that slip up as Freudian. And then we have The Ugly Stepsister. Now, The Ugly Stepsister is my choice for Want to Win. The Ugly Stepsister is a beautiful retelling of Cinderella, but it's one of those like dark and scary, like what if your childhood story was a horror movie retellings, except like actually really, really intelligent and really, really about something. This doesn't feel like Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. This is actually a legitimately interesting and unique take on the story. And it's a horror movie that's like about something. It's a horror movie that there's a common theme among recent horror movies that's like, wow, they're all about trauma. But this one, The Ugly Stepsister, is not about that. It's about something that I haven't seen a horror movie be about too often. It's about the way that women are treated in society, the misogyny that runs really below the surface. I mean, the movie kind of brings it to the surface and makes it impossible to ignore, but it's little things that, you might not expect to see otherwise declared as misogyny, but they very clearly are. Things like judging women by how the standards of conventional attraction, the idea that women should somehow change their lives or routines or cycles in in favor of men in order to um, please men, and then again the idea that women should refrain from being themselves in any way that's like, I mean, what they're saying, how they react to things that are said, that they should hold themselves back in order to please men. That's what that movie is about. And it's a kind of an interesting horror movie, and also just like a really weird contrast with a movie like The Smashing Machine, which is mostly about how women's feelings are pretty much invalid, and really, you know, men should be more focused on, which is a really horrible thing for a movie to be about. I mean, just like, I don't know if it was intentional or if that was just how the script ended up coming out, but someone should have caught that. I don't know. But The Ugly Stepsister has those really interesting ideas. It's a really gross watch, and it has a lot of those that good gore makeup, and the makeup as a whole is also really, really very good in that movie. What do I think actually will win? And I mean, this is going to be a pretty common theme, but Frankenstein is probably going to sweep a lot of these texts. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is really technically impressive on a filmmaking level. You look at Frankenstein, and they have this crazy monster makeup to bring Jacob Elordi playing Frankenstein's monster to life. And yeah, the makeup's good elsewhere, but like, wow, that monster, Jacob Elordi, is unrecognizable. And Jacob Elordi's career is built on being recognizable as Jacob Elordi. He is a sex symbol, that's his thing. He's beautiful, but not here. Here, yeah, he's still Jacob Elordi, but you wouldn't necessarily clock him immediately. And he has shown himself to be quite a good character actor. I did not realize he was capable of a performance like that. So I think Frankenstein wins there on makeup. And I'm going to run through a couple more um, on the technical level that I think Frankenstein has a good grasp on. There are three, including makeup, that I'm interested in looking at. This next one, I will go because the nominees for this one are a little less interesting. Production design. The nominees are Frankenstein, production design, Tamara Deverell, set decoration, Shane Vio. Hamnet, production design, Fiona Crombie, set decoration, Alice Felton. Marty Supreme, production design, Jack Fisk, set decoration, Adam Willis. One Battle After Another, production design, Florencia Martin, set decoration, Anthony Carlino. And Sinners, production design, Hannah Beachler, set decoration, Monique Champagne. Uh, I mean, this is a pretty classic slate of nominees that we're going to be seeing. Like, you take these 5 films and you put them into any category, and they're probably there. Like, across these 5 movies, they're probably in every category. So I feel like there's not a lot to say here in terms of the nominees. I'll touch on the sets. The sets in Frankenstein are gorgeous. That is my want to win and will win. Um, and the question of want to win versus should win, like, normally I'm going to want whatever I think should win to win. There's one exception, and I'll get to that a little bit later. Um, but yeah, no, like Frankenstein, the sets are beautiful. Hamnet, the sets are. It's a historical drama, and a lot of it takes place in the woods. And the woods are very well realized. I don't know if they shot on location for that, and if they didn't, that's really incredible that they managed to pull off what they did while not shooting on location. But again, it's something that's like I need a production designer to point out to me what's so impressive about that set, because to me it looks like it was filmed on location. And if it wasn't, then I immediately know, oh, okay, that's really, really cool that they were able to do that. But if it is, what makes that set really, really impressive? And the houses they build and stuff are cool. And there's, a play at the end, and the set there is cool. So like, it's good production design. Marty Supreme has great production design. One Battle After Another. I was not that impressed by the production design in One Battle After Another. And One Battle After Another is a movie I'll get to a little bit more in depth with my thoughts on it. But the basic outline is everybody thinks it's really, really good. I think it's just good. Like I don't love One Battle After Another, but I certainly understand the people that do. And then Sinners. And Sinners has really good production design. But Frankenstein, I think, gets my should win and will win vote. And then the last Frankenstein dominated category, at least for now, is costume design. Now, costume design has some interesting nominees, so I'll go over them really quickly. The nominees are Avatar Fire and Ash, costume design Deborah L. Scott. Frankenstein, costume design Kate Hawley. Hamnet, costume design Malgosia Terzonska. Marty Supreme, costume design Miyako Belizzi. And Sinners, costume design Ruth E. Carter. Now, if this were a career award, I would give it to Ruth E. Carter. It's not, though. And see, the costume design for Sinners was interesting because I had heard the anecdotal story, actually, that the costumes for Sinners were just reused from the MCU Blade movie that got scrapped. I mean, I'm sure that they recontextualized them and they redid some things on them, and there was actual costume design involved. I have no doubt about that. This is not me trying to undermine Ruth Carter's nomination. For me, it was just I didn't think that the Academy would be impressed by that to give it an award for costume design. Then we go to Avatar Fire and Ash, which is, I'm sure I know that they made the costumes practically before scanning them into the 3D environment, but it's really hard for me to look at a movie like Avatar Fire and Ash and say, wow, the costumes. Because they feel like they could have been CGI'd on and I wouldn't be able to tell. Again, not to undermine the efforts of Deborah L. Scott. That's not my intention at all. I'm just explaining why I was surprised that these movies got nominated among this crop. And Frankenstein, I think, still wins. The outfits in that movie are fantastic. But Marty Supreme, mostly street clothes. Very evocative street clothes, no doubt, but still not something that people look at and immediately cachet as exciting. And Hamnet's really the other big go up against Frankenstein, because I mean the costumes are similar. They're both historical dramas. Hamnet's set farther in the past, but the outfits are very striking. Jessie Buckley in that red dress is a very striking image from the movie, and that's the one that you'll see in a lot of the marketing and the poster. But I do think Frankenstein wins this one, and it's also important to note at this point that Wicked for Good, the sequel to Wicked, and Wicked got a whole lot of nominations, and in costume design it was very big. Like it won costume design last year. There were 2 original songs made for the movie. Neither of them got nominated. Instead, we got Viva Verdi, which felt like a weird pick even at the time when they announced it. No nominees for in costume design. It completely blanked, which was very, very surprising. I expected it to get at least either song or costume design or even production design, but no, it got nothing. So worth bringing up. That was just a very surprising thing that I didn't expect to happen. Um, I am going to go through the short films. I'm going to start with animated short film. Now, I've seen all 15 short films, and so I won't be going super deep into plot summaries for each one. And this is I feel like a lot of people don't really know the shorts, so I'm going to try to go quickly through them. Uh, but if you're interested in the shorts, I would definitely seek them out. And if you're interested enough, maybe I'll sit down again and do a review of all 15 short films. But the nominees for animated short film are Butterfly, Florence Miali and Ron Dyens; Forever Green, Nathan Engelhart and Jeremy Spears; The Girl Who Cried Pearls, Chris Lavis and Maciek Szurbowski; Retirement Plan, John Kelly and Andrew Friedman; and The Three Sisters, Konstantin Bronzit. So, just small little introduction to each of these. Butterfly is about a French swimmer, a French Olympic swimmer who is Jewish and lived through the Holocaust. Forever Green is about a bear and the bear's mother, who is a tree. The Girl Who Cried Pearls is about a very poor man who falls in love with a girl who cries pearls and has the dilemma of reaping her pearls for his wealth or not. Retirement Plan, which is about a man who has a dream to do a lot of things when he retires, and The Three Sisters, which is about three nuns who meet this guy who they all fall madly in love with. The one that's going to win here, I think, is Butterfly. Butterfly, the fact that it's animated is really in your face, and I think that the Oscars and the Academy will appreciate when a movie is unabashedly animated. Butterfly is not as animated with these paints on glass, and you can see the individual strokes as they change color and they kind of work to shift the scene and makes transitions really flowy and beautiful. And it works on that level, but it also means that there's some interstitial images that just feel like colors kind of willy nilly. Like it's just really hard to wrap your head around sometimes. And then, of course, the image comes into focus and you're like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, the one that I want to win, the one that I like best, is The Girl Who Cried Pearls, which is a very well told story that leaves off on a really, really interesting question. I think it's beautiful, animated just as well as Butterfly. Although, to be fair, it's hard to compare the quality of animation across different media. So, maybe Butterfly is like a million times harder to animate than The Girl Who Cried Pearls is, and I just made a fool of myself. But regardless, I did like The Girl Who Cried Pearls more. I think Butterfly probably wins. Um, and yeah, Forever Green is fine, and uh, Retirement Plan is very, very good, but I don't think it leaves as much of an impact as something like Butterfly or The Girl Who Cries Pearls. And then The Three Sisters, I didn't like. It's a fun little animation, but I didn't think it was very good. Yeah, so there's a little bit there. I don't see The Three Sisters winning. It's easily the least meaningful, I think, out of the five. It's the fun one, but I think the other ones are sufficiently captivating that in a way The Three Sisters isn't, such that I believe it will not win, and the others have a much better chance. Moving on to documentary short film. The nominees are All the Empty Rooms, Joshua Seftel and Connell Jones; Armed Only with a Camera, The Life and Death of Brent Renault, Craig Renault, and Juan Arredondo; Children No More, Were and Are Gone, Hilla Medalia and Sheila Nevins; The Devil is Busy, Crystalline Hampton and Geeta Gondbir; and Perfectly a Strangeness, Allison McAlpine. So All the Empty Rooms is about, just fair warning before we get into this, if it's a documentary category, you can be well assured that the nominees are going to be depressing. That's typically how these categories operate. So just fair warning there. All the Empty Rooms is about a photographer who goes to the empty rooms of children lost in school shootings to photograph them. Armed Only with a Camera, The Life and Death of Brent Renault is a celebration of the life of Brent Renault, who was very tragically killed while he was a photojournalist and he was covering the conflict in Ukraine, and Russia sent an attack on him to kill him. Children No More is about protesters in Tel Aviv who hold up signs of the Palestinian children killed in the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Um, and The Devil is Busy is about a woman who runs an abortion clinic and has to deal with people outside protesting the women getting abortions there. And Perfectly a Strangeness is about a bunch of donkeys finding an observatory, like a space observatory. The nominees here are very depressing, and it kind of pains me to go on record and say that the films about this really real and depressing topic are not very good. But I found myself not jiving with most of these movies. Perfectly a Strangeness is not depressing, so I don't feel bad saying that it's not very good. And it's not that the photography itself is bad, because that's all it is. It's photography. But um, it's not a documentary. It's not documenting anything. And the whole angle of it is that it pushes the limits of what a story can be. But I think that's really bullshit. And I don't buy that at all. So, no, Perfectly Strange is not for me. Armed Only with a Camera, I think, suffers from how good of a journalist Brent Renault is, because it's a lot of footage of him filming the sort of human suffering, but it plays more like a highlight reel, which is unfortunate because that's not really how I think about human suffering, I guess. It's not like, wow, look at how good this human suffering is. I don't know. Like, Brent Renault gets out of the way so well that when they play those clips, it's like he's not even documenting them. It doesn't feel like we're celebrating him. It feels like we're celebrating the events themselves, and he is providing coverage of those events. That's just how it reads, and that's 100% not at all what they're saying with this movie, and I recognize that, but I can't help but bring up the fact that that's what it feels like watching the movie, and yeah, which is unfortunate because that it's a really it should be a really powerful topic. And then All the Empty Rooms is the one that's probably going to win. Uh, a lot of people found it very impactful. I see why. I think it suffers from a similar issue as Armed Only with a Camera, which is it's actually the opposite issue. The pictures that they're taking of the rooms are very, very good. The part where they're documenting the people taking them is significantly less good because it exposes, I think, a lot of holes in the movie's kind of messaging. Like, yeah, he's doing this and he's trying to capture the rooms of the children. Then he says he wants to give back to the families by sending them photo albums of all the pictures of the kids' empty room. And I don't see how that's giving back at all. Plus, a lot of it is like the guy who's actually doing it was like, oh yeah, I was the fun reporter at the news station, but now I'm doing this really meaningful thing. And it feels more like he's trying to prop himself up than bring any awareness to the issue, which sucks. I mean, it feels like it should be filled with a lot more anger, and I feel like it's not filled with anger, which is annoying, and it's also like overly long. I mean, it's I think supposed to be somewhat meditative, but I don't think that works in its favor. The one that I think should win is The Devil is Busy, um, which is the one about the abortion clinic. That is a fantastic documentary. That is filled with the appropriate amount of anger and also just very harrowing, very depressing, and very like you watch it and you're just it makes you realize how awful some parts of the world that we're living in are, and the people that are in charge of this world. Just you have these people who don't know anything about like getting an abortion, don't know anything about the actual medical process of pregnancy, abortion, childbirth, any of these things, that are standing outside an abortion clinic, a healthcare service, and yelling at women going in and terrorizing them. And they don't say it out loud, but from the way the woman running the clinic walks and talks and acts, it's clear that there have been attacks and assaults on the property of this clinic, all because of these people who believe that they're more entitled to women's bodies than women are and will use things like faith and morality as their tools, their weapons, their fallacies in order to promote that argument. And it's a really it's like a horror movie. It really is. And there's a lot of sadness layered in there. And it also follows this woman who is religious. And she actually, weirdly enough, it seems like she believes that abortion on some level is murder, but she also believes that it's healthcare, and she believes that God will forgive because it's healthcare. And God has one of God's tests is putting an essential medical service, making it murder. And it's actually a really interesting and layered perspective because you get someone who seemingly ideologically agrees with the people that are protesting. And I don't want to make it sound like the subject of this documentary is in any way against abortion. She runs an abortion clinic and is very much believes in the necessities of abortion. And she but like she has all these interesting facets to her character, and she's a real and complicated person, and it was a very fantastic documentary. And just, if we keep going down the path we're going to, not going to turn out great. And it's one of those movies that really shocks you awake to the reality of that. Just something that feels like it was swept almost under the rug after it happened. Just how actually terrible it is for a lot of people living there. Another movie I wouldn't be upset if it won, but I don't think it will, is Children No More. This year has a surprising lack of Palestine documentaries. Last year, there were a lot of documentaries and movies about the situation in Israel and Palestine. This year, there are less. There are, I think, 3, including this one, but this is a very powerful one. And really, just it shows similarly to The Devil Is Busy. It's very like the lengths that people will go to justify their own emotional reaction at something. There's no attempt to intellectualize it. It's based on faith in this false sense of morality, ultimately. That like the idea that 20,000 children can die is acceptable in the minds of people who believe in this warped form of nationalism, that all the decisions made by this state are acceptable under the pretense, and that's the pretense they're working under, and then trying to fulfill that pretense and trying to make that pretense correct and justified. And I mean, those are just the people that they choose to focus on in the documentary, but it paints a story, it paints a picture, which is what a good documentary, I think, does. So yes, I would not be upset if Children No More won. And then the last short film category is live action short film. The nominees are Butcher's Stain, Maya Levinson Blount and Oren Caspi, A Friend of Dorothy, Lee Knight and James Dean, Jane Austen's period drama, Julia Axe and Steve Pinder, The Singers, Sam A. Davis and Jack Piat, and Two People Exchanging Saliva, Alexandre Singh and Natalie Mustada. I'm just going to, again, run through the plots really quickly. Butcher's Stain is about an Arab butcher, I believe also in Tel Aviv, and if not Tel Aviv, then somewhere in Israel, who is accused of tearing down hostage posters in the break room of his workplace. A Friend of Dorothy is about an old woman who finds companionship and friendship in a young aspiring actor. Jane Austen's period drama is a Sense and Sensibility spoof about a woman in a Jane Austen novel explaining menstruation to her love. The Singers is a bar hangout movie about a bunch of people who stage an impromptu singing competition and find companionship in that. And Two People Exchanging Saliva is about an alternate world in which kissing is taboo and you pay for things by getting slapped in the face. So one of these is not like the other. like A Friend of Dorothy and Butcher's Stain are both very grounded movies in a lot of way. Butcher's Stain is very good. I think all of these shorts are very good. This is probably the strongest short film category, but just like Butcher Stain is very good, a little simple, but very good. And again, a Palestine movie. That's something that we're kind of lacking here, but we get an interesting perspective onto it. We're past. It feels like it feels like a remnant of something that would have been released last year. It's like it feels like a lot of the Palestine documentaries released this year didn't get a lot of recognition because we tried to show it in a way that was unique and a lot of people didn't latch onto the message. And so a lot of what's being produced, especially in Children No More, is like very in your face, like people are dying right now. And then that message doesn't latch onto people because it's simple. It's yes, people are dying, and the movies make it really impactful and really like to actually understand the weight of the number that they're showing off, but they're not doing it in a way that goes beyond um just showing you. And I don't think you need to go beyond just showing, but a lot of movies in the past were trying to do that. We're trying to go beyond just showing you because they figured that we were all on the same page initially, which we are not. So Butcher Stain is much more like much more examining it in a unique way and doing more than just showing you the event and the impact that it's had. A Friend of Dorothy, similarly, just very grounded, interesting take on something that we've kind of seen before, you know. But a very, very sweet movie. Jane Austen's period drama, a little bit out there, but I'm always happy to see a fun comedy get nominated. This is a fun comedy. It's a spoof, and I do think it actually is quite funny. The Singers is very beautiful, like a beautifully shot movie, a beautifully written movie. The Singers is probably my second favorite of the bunch, but again, if it wasn't so dreamlike in cinematography, it would be a very grounded story. Not a crazy amount of things happen in it, and part of where it excels is the fact that it's able to convince you that all these people would do that, not even in a world that encourages it necessarily, but this world, a world in which that could happen and also might not happen. And then Two People Exchanging Saliva takes place in a completely different world that's almost unrecognizable. And it's so good. It's like I was so impressed by it. I very much love Two People Exchanging Saliva, and I think it should win. And I think it will win. Just it's so ambitious and it does so much, and they're adapting it into a feature. And I think the specific story it's telling works best as a short. But there's so much to explore there. Enough left unanswered that I really want to hear more about this world, hear it a little bit more fleshed out, what's going on in other parts of it. And it's just a movie so full of everything that you could want in a movie, all packed into that small runtime, and ultimately does build up a compelling world with compelling characters. And really, what more could you want? Um, yeah. So those are my picks for documentary, animated, and live action. And yeah. So let's take a break from the techs. And there's only a couple more tech categories, but let's break away from that and do one. Let's do two of the core eight categories, the two screenplay categories. There is original screenplay, which means that it was, original, like not based on anything. And then there's adapted screenplay, which means it was based on something. So I'll start with original screenplay. Original screenplay, we have Blue Moon, written by Robert Kaplow. It Was Just an Accident, written by Jafar Panahi, script collaborators Nander Saivar, Shadmer Rostin, and Mehdi Mahmoudian. Marty Supreme, written by Ronald Bronstein and Josh Safdie. Sentimental Value, written by Eskil Vogt and Joachim Trier. And Sinners, written by Ryan Coogler. So these are the ones that aren't based on anything. Although, I mean, Marty Supreme is based on a real person's life, but it's not based on a work, which makes it count under original. Same thing with Blue Moon. is based on a person, but not based on a work, which makes it eligible for that category. And yeah, I mean, Blue Moon, by the way, is based on the story of Lawrence Hart, who who was a very popular songwriter. Um, and yeah, so like the core 8 categories, which is 2 screenplay awards, 4 acting awards, directing, and picture, those are considered to be the ones that most represent um, what the Oscars consider to be the best films of the year. Those are the canon of best films of the year. And when you look at original screenplay and you see that one of the front runners for like what the Academy thinks is the best movie of the year is up for consideration, that one's probably going to win. So original screenplay I think should and will win is Sinners. Sinners is one of the two that that is vying for that top spot. And the thing is, it's not competing in this category with One Battle After Another. One Battle After Another is adapted from a book, so it's competing in the other category. So it seems like almost a no-brainer that it has this one on lock. That's not to say that the other movies are bad. I think this is the first time we've been introduced to It Was Just an Accident, which a lot of people thought would get a Best Picture nomination. That's the Palme d'Or winner from this year. Um, that is about another movie that's analyzing the slow spread of fascism. And then Sentimental Value, which is about the importance of family, but then also how filmmaking ties into your interpersonal relationships. That's an interesting movie that we'll get into a little bit later, but I think Sinners has it in the bag here. Moving on to adapted, we have Begonia, screenplay by Will Tracy, based on the movie Save the Green Planet. Frankenstein, written for the screen by Guillermo del Toro, based on the book Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. Hamnet, screenplay by Chloe Zhao and Maggie O'Farrell, based on the book Hamnet. One Battle After Another, written by Paul Thomas Anderson, based on the book Vinland. And Train Dreams, screenplay by Clint Bentley and Greg Quadar, based on the book Train Dreams. I've always had trouble with the adapted screenplay category, not just because it only focuses on adapting from works, which I think is a little bit like, if you're adapting from real life, maybe you should also be up for adapted rather than original, but I digress. Adapted, there are 2 different ways you can take it. You can take it as best screenplay that just so happens to be based on a story that already exists, or best like screenplay that does the best job at adapting its source material. Now, with that second one, I can't give a good answer because I've not seen Save the Green Planet. I have not read Hamnet. I've not read Vinland. I've not read Train Dreams. The only source material of this crop of 5 that I've read is Frankenstein, and I don't think Guillermo del Toro did a good job adapting it. So, like, I guess, 4-way tie in that case, but I can't give in good conscience thoughts on that way of saying it. So I'm just going to say best screenplay that happens to be based on a book, which I want Hamnet to win because I think Hamnet is the best of this class, but I think One Battle After Another is going to win because again, it's up there for the top 2 slot, and if it's up there for the top 2 slot, I think it has this one kind of in the bag. And a lot of things have been discussed about Hamnet, like its connection to Hamlet, the play, the Shakespeare play, and whether or not that totally works. And I think it does. I really do like Hamnet, and I think it's a very good and polished screenplay. And I think it's a lot more polished and workable than One Battle After Another, which feels on a lot of levels very messy and hurried and frenzied and all over the place. Which is why I want Hamnet to win, but I know it won't. I think One Battle After Another has this one in the bag. All right, let's do a couple more texts because I think we have 4 left to go at this point. Let's bring in a new nominee that'll be around for a little bit. It's nominated in a couple of categories, and to do that, we're going to look at the nominees for sound. The nominees for sound, for best sound, the used to be sound design and sound mixing, I think. but they combined it into just sound. So it combines both of those elements. The nominees are F1, Gareth John L. Nelson, Gwendolyn Yates Whittle, Gary A. Rizzo, and Juan Peralta. Frankenstein, Greg Chapman, Nathan Robital, Nelson Ferreira, Christian Cook, and Brad Zorn. One Battle After Another, Jose Antonio Garcia, Christopher Sacrabosio, and Tony Villaflor. Sinners, Chris Welker, Benjamin A. Burt, Felipe Pacheco, Brandon Proctor, and Steve Bodeker. And Sirat, Amanda Villavieja, Laia Casanovas, and Yasmina Pradera. So F1 is the nominee that's going to be sticking around. It's nominated in a couple of categories. And part of me wants to say that One Battle After Another is going to win this because I don't know if you've taken notice, but I have picked One Battle After Another for a single award here, and it's been nominated for a couple. Normally a Best Picture winner will win a couple more, but I think F1 has this one here, and I actually want Sirat to win. I'm a little mixed on the movie's quality, but the sound is not the issue in Sirat. The sound is really like it's about a rave, so there's a lot of big speaker kind of sound design that really rattles you to your core, especially in some of the later scenes. Like that, it's really, really good, the sound design in that movie. But I think F1 has it. F1, I think, it gets a lot of credit from the Oscar overlords, the Academy, because it's an old-fashioned kind of classic style blockbuster that they like. And yeah, I mean, it's really handsomely produced. It looks great. It sounds great. In the theater, it's really a fantastic experience. Joseph Kosinski knows how to direct a movie for the big screen. And yeah, I think F1 has it for this category. But again, this is the biggest weakness with my predictions. I don't have One Battle After Another winning a lot of categories, and it's one of the two like Best Picture contenders here, which is weird. Typically, that doesn't happen, which is why I'm a little nervous calling it out on things like score. Like when those two things are hotly contested, shouldn't it come out on top? And maybe, but I'm not having it come out on top. So that's something I think. Yeah. So that is sound. I'm going to move on to let's move on to a category which has some fun nominees, but is so this category, this is visual effects. This category typically contains all of the fun movies, all of the good old blockbusters. A couple years ago, Mission Impossible got nominated for this. A Godzilla movie won this award. Things like Indiana Jones get nominated for this award. The nominee is for visual effects, and you'll see immediately why this is a really boring category this year, but the nominees for visual effects are Avatar Fire and Ash, Joe Leterrier, Richard Banham, Eric Sandin, and Daniel Barrett. F1, Ryan Tudope, Nicholas Chevalier, Robert Harrington, and Keith Dawson. Jurassic World Rebirth, David Vickery, Stephen Applin, Charmaine Chan, and Neil Corbold. The Lost Bus, Charlie Noble, David Zaretti, Russell Bowen, and Brandon K. McLaughlin. And Sinners, Michael Ralla, Espen Nordahl, Guido Wolter, and Donnie Dean. So Avatar is going to win this one, and it should, because when an Avatar movie comes out, it wins Best Visual Effects. Avatar movies are so carefully produced in their visual effects to make them look as good as possible that, yeah, they're going to look as good as possible. And the Avatar movies are consistently some of the best looking blockbusters that come out in a year. So it's a little unfair to even say, like, that it's not fun, because that's a slight to a lot of these movies. The Lost Bus manages to pull off fire VFX really well, and fire typically looks bad when you do it in post, but it looks really, really good in that movie. Jurassic World Rebirth, I don't like the movie. I think it's quite bad, actually, but the dinosaurs look good at least, and Godzilla won for that. But at the end of the day, I mean, Avatar has this cornered in all senses, and it deserves to have that cornered. Now let's move on to F1's final nomination, and one of the last texts that we have left. This is film editing. The nominees are F1, Stephen Mirion, Marty Supreme, Ronald Bronstein, and Josh Safdie. One Battle After Another, Andy Jurgensen. Sentimental Value, Olivier Bouget Coty. I'm I'm sorry, I mispronounced that. Sinners, Michael P. Shaver. I think One Battle After Another has this. I don't think it should win. I think any movie other than One Battle After Another deserves this Oscar more, but I think editing is typically an easy in for a movie that is up for Best Picture. Um, just like part of what makes a movie the best picture is that it has really good editing. When you think about what are the essential parts of making a movie, right? Pre production, screenplay, production, director typically, and post production, editing. So if you have those three, you have a good shot at Best Picture at least. And that's like kind of the bare minimum when it comes to like how much you should expect a movie to win alongside a Best Picture win. But regardless, I think One Battle After Another has that. So when you talk about general editing like rhythm and pacing and things like that, I don't think that there's any incompetently edited movies in this crop. I think that the editing makes itself a little bit more obvious in a movie like Sentimental Value or F1, and it makes itself invisible but helps the pacing in a movie like Marty Supreme and Sinners. I think the best edited movie of this crop is Marty Supreme. So, yeah, I do. I think it's Marty Supreme. So I want Marty Supreme to win. But I think One Battle After Another will win. Again, pre-production, production, post-production. You get those three, kind of the bare minimum. And again, how many other movies are winning that number? It's not often that two movies win four, I guess, um, in a season, and especially in a season as stacked as this, where it feels like there's a lot of competition among the tech categories, and then also some of the above the line categories are kind of toss ups or are weirdly enough locked in for movies that you don't see having a lot of success um, throughout the other categories, and we'll get to a couple of those when we get above the line here. So yeah, I see One Battle After Another winning, but I want Marty Supreme too. Then we have cinematography. The nominees for cinematography are Frankenstein, Dan Laustsen, Marty Supreme, Darius Khondji, One Battle After Another, Michael Bauman, Sinners, Autumn Durald Arkpaw, and Train Dreams, Adolfo Veloso. This one is really, really, really hard to predict. And for a very long time, I just didn't know which one was going to end up winning here. It really feels like it could be any of the ones here. I am picking One Battle After Another for this, and I want Frankenstein to win. Frankenstein is a utterly beautiful movie that absolutely deserves this Oscar. But I think One Battle After Another has it. And part of that is like it needs more wins in these predictions. And it winning Best Picture with 5 wins is a little bit more comforting to me than it winning with 4 wins, especially when if Frankenstein did win this and everything else was correct, Frankenstein would have 4 wins. And then One Battle After Another would have 4 wins. And it's like, okay. But like Frankenstein is beautiful. I think it deserves this Oscar. That or Sinners. I think One Battle After Another will get it because it's easy to point to a movie like One Battle After Another where everybody likes it and say like I really like the cinematography in that movie. And I don't know, this is the one that might come back to bite me in the butt honestly, but because there are some that are more explicitly beautiful, but I do feel like when it comes to what the Academy is going to want to reward for this particular category, it's going to come down to One Battle After Another. But that is my one of my least confident predictions. It's not my least confident prediction, but it's one of them. So just keep that in mind. As we move on to some of these specialty categories, these are above the line, but they have special eligibility rules. Um, so let's just start off with best animated feature. The nominees for best animated feature are Arco, Ugo Bienvenu, Philly D. Givry, Sophie Moss, and Natalie Portman. Those are the nominees here are producers. Elio, Madeline Sharafian, Domi Shi, Adrian Molina, and Mary Alice Drum. K-pop Demon Hunters, Maggie King, Chris Applehans, and Michelle L.M. Wong. Little Amelie, or the character of Rain, Mais Valade, Lian Chohan, Nydia Santiago, and Henry Magallan. And Zootopia 2, Jared Bush, Byron Howard, and Yvette Marino. Important caveat here, I have not seen Arco. Just its availability did not work out well for me, and I didn't see it before I recorded this. It is one of the 3 I haven't seen. That being said, K-pop Demon Hunters was my second favorite movie of the year. So I think it deserves this. Now, that is of the 4 I've seen. Arco could be better than K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know. And I want to leave that possibility open. So when I say I want K-pop Demon Hunters to win, and I think K-pop Demon Hunters will win, and you don't actually need to watch the movies to have a reasonable prediction of what will win. You just have to follow a lot of Oscar pundits and figure out what's in the conversation. And Arco's not really in the conversation, but K-pop Demon Hunters is dominating the conversation. K-pop Demon Hunters won every Annie Award it was up for, which is like 10, is a sweep that has never been before seen. So I think my prediction that K-pop Demon Hunters will win is founded, and you can trust that. My statement that I want it to win is a slightly unfounded because maybe I'll watch Arco and decide I want that one to win. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. But my prediction that K-pop Demon Hunters will win, I think, is a solid prediction still, and I'm very confident in it. So yeah, I really didn't like Elio. I hate that it got nominated. I know there were some like backup options that included things like the Demon Slayer movie, which I haven't seen the TV show, so I probably wouldn't have seen. But this was a rough year for animation. I think Elio getting nominated kind of proves that, and it's not a very good movie. Moving on to Best Documentary Feature. Again, these are going to be depressing, so, keep that in mind. The Alabama Solution, Andrew Jarecki and Charlotte Kaufman. Come See Me in the Good Light, Ryan White, Jessica Hargrave, Tig Notaro, and Steph Willen. Cutting Through Rocks, Sarah Kaki and Mohammad Reza Aini. Mr. Nobody Against Putin, David Bornstein, Pavel Telenkin, Heli Faber, and Alzbeta Karaskova. And The Perfect Neighbor, Gita Ganbir, Alyssa Payne, Nikon Kwantu, and Sam Bisbee. So, if you've noticed that you've just heard a name that I mentioned before, Gita Ganbir, who directed The Perfect Neighbor, also directed The Devil is Busy. That's the first time a director has ever directed both both a documentary short and a documentary feature that have both been nominated for Oscars in the same year. Gita Ganbir is clearly a very impressive filmmaker because she made my favorite of both categories. She made The Perfect Neighbor, which is my favorite and the one I want to win, also the one I think is going to win. This is a very solid docs lineup. The Perfect Neighbor is one of the most horrifying documentaries I've ever seen. Come See Me in the Good Light is one of the saddest movies I've ever seen. I don't typically cry to movies, but that one got me. It's so good. It's about Andrea Gibson, who was this very, very talented and very important queer poet. And it follows her dealing with her cancer diagnosis. And the poetry that is included there is just very, very powerful. And it's very, very good. And it's really a heartbreaking film. The Perfect Neighbor, because I didn't mention it, is a compilation of found footage from police body cam footage and some security camera footage of the events leading up to the murder of Ajika Owens and the constant terrorization of this neighborhood by a woman named Susan Lawrence. Cutting Through Rocks is a good movie. It's about this woman who is running for council of her district in Iran and has to go up against a lot of misogynist men who really want to keep women in the place that they perceive is appropriate for women to be in. Definitely the most infuriating documentary. I mean, there's a lot of people in that documentary that say just blatant misogynist things, and you're sitting there like, how do you not realize what you're saying? And it's, really, really horrible. So it definitely has that going for it. And then the Alabama Solution is kind of a discreetly filmed documentary of the interior workings of the U.S. prison system and how horrifying it is. That's a really horrifying documentary. And then Mr. Nobody Against Putin is a documentation of this like middle school in Russia slowly becoming more and more propagandistic after Russia attacked Ukraine. And very like militaristic and sort of like the best thing that you could hope to do with your life is die for your country is kind of the end goal that the end message that a lot of these government reforms that change the schools, like that's what they're angling towards. That's a really horrifying documentary. Um, and yeah, just a lot of things here are very horrifying. And I don't have the words, I feel like, to describe a lot of these things because these are real events and they're really horrifying and horrible events that are occurring. And the documentaries do such a good job at making them seem or showing them the importance that they have, the true importance that they have off, that I feel like it is disingenuous to comment on them from a filmmaking standpoint almost, which is, I know, kind of like my job. And I think they're all filmed very well for what it's worth. But it's also like, I can say that The Perfect Neighbor was edited and paced really, really well, but it has something more important to say than its editing and pacing. Um, which is why it's a little bit weird for me to like sit on this podcast and say like, "Oh yeah, no, this was very well filmed," because it was more than just well filmed, but it was very well filmed. Yeah, The Perfect Neighbor I want to win and I think will win. I have faith in the Academy to make the right choice there. And then we get to international feature, which is just any movie produced outside the United States, or at least I guess with production companies that originate outside the. Well, maybe it's just language, but basically, it's essentially, or maybe it's like director's heritage, where the director lives, but countries can submit their own films. And the nominees are the Brazilian film, The Secret Agent, the French film, It Was Just an Accident, which is actually an Iranian film, but Iran didn't submit it, and Jafar Panahi also has French citizenship. The Norwegian film Sentimental Value, the Spanish film Sirat, and the Tunisian film The Voice of Hinj Rahab. Another disclaimer in the final one of the episode, I have not seen The Voice of Hinj Rahab, so while I do have a good idea of what movie will win, when I say what movie I want to win, that is of the four that I've seen, and I could watch The Voice of Hinj Rahab and think it really deserves that win. A lot of these movies are about the rise of fascism, and it's a very depressing category because The Secret Agent and It Was Just an Accident are so aggressively bleak. But I look at a movie like Sirat that is trying to be that bleak, but doesn't do the things that you would expect a movie to do. Like it doesn't have its story doesn't cohere in the way like setup and payoff is completely out of the window. The characters have nothing to them, but it still wants you to care about them. And it works on some levels, it doesn't work on others. And you start to see that there's clearly there can clearly be some burnout happening here among Oscar voters looking at like, oh my god, The Secret Agent. I mean, again, these movies are not short. The Secret Agent is 2.5 hours long. Sirat and It Was Just an Accident, I think, are just short of 2. So they're watching these really long, depressing movies, and it's not fair. But you start to think that the Oscar voters are probably going to vote for the lighter one, the one that doesn't feel so relevant, and that's Sentimental Value. I think Sentimental Value is the best of this crop, so I want it to win. I also think that it probably will win because it's not a politically charged story. I mean, it is because all art is political, but it isn't in the sense that it isn't explicitly attempting to make a politically entwined message, and it's not attempting to be a direct takedown of the politics of currently, which Sirat and It Was Just an Accident and The Secret Agent are trying to do. But Sentimental Value isn't. And yeah, so I think Sentimental Value wins that one. And I want it to win as well. All right. Now we're up to the final 6 categories. These are 4 acting categories and directing and picture. So I'm just going to start with supporting actor and work my way up. Best Actor in a Supporting Role. The nominees are Benicio del Toro for One Battle After Another, Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, Delroy Lindo for Sinners, Sean Penn for One Battle After Another, and Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. So this is a weird category, and a lot of the acting categories are. I wouldn't go so far as to call this a toss-up, but this is one of the more competitive categories that we have in this race. So we have Benicio del Toro, who received a lot of love from, especially the Critics Awards, and he kind of came out of nowhere when it came time to get nominated, and it was like really the supporting performance that you're picking from One Battle After Another. You'd expect it to be Sean Penn, but no, they went for Benicio del Toro and also Sean Penn. And Sean Penn would end up winning the actor award, which really threw a wrench into things. And then we have Jacob Elordi, who is good, but I think I want Jacob Elordi to win, so mark that down. But I don't think he will. I think he delivers a fantastic performance, in my opinion, the best of this group. But I think he's not the kind of guy that the Oscars want to capitalize on by giving an Oscar to him early in his career. You look at a lot of Oscar winners, and they're given like early in their career, and you could tell they're Oscars because the Academy sees how much potential this actor has. Adrian Brody for The Pianist, Mikey Madison for Anora, usually winning over veteran actors. So I don't see Jacob Elordi winning that kind of Oscar, but that's his best chance. Delroy Lindo, it felt like the nomination was the award. Everyone knows he deserves one by this point, but his performance is not the best. Like it's a good performance, but it's not the best from the movie he's in, and it's certainly not the best among this crop. Sean Penn gives a standout performance, but also never campaigns for anything. And in a year this stacked, that might come back to bite him, but he did win the actor award. And Stellan Skarsgård is the one that I think is going to win. Stellan Skarsgård, here's the thing with Guild Awards. They can be really hard on international film because international film is not always created with the constraints of American labor unions in mind. So you look at what wins. That's like a big shortcoming of Guild Awards. You look at what wins in Guild Awards, and it's not always reflective of what people are voting for in the Oscars if what people are voting for in the Oscars is a foreign film. Stellan Skarsgård acts in a foreign film. And I think the fact that Benicio del Toro seems to be winning one subset of the votes and Sean Penn the other subset, I think is splitting the votes of people that are voting for the One Battle After Another actors in this category, and ends up being beneficial to none of them. I suppose I won't be surprised if either of them wins, but what you need is a clear line differentiating the people voting. Like, there needs to be a strong majority of people voting for one performance in a movie. Because if people are going in voting for the movie and they have two performances to vote for, they're going to end up splitting 50-50. It's statistics, it's probability. And I don't see a huge outcry in favor of either Benicio del Toro or Sean Penn. I see a lot of praise for both, but ultimately I think you're going to need a little bit more of a commanding lead in order to win that. And I don't think that either Sean Penn nor Benicio del Toro has that, and I think Stellan Skarsgård's going to float to the top. Then we have supporting actress. The nominees are Elle Fanning for Sentimental Value, Inga Ibsdottir Lilius for Sentimental Value, Amy Madigan for Weapons, Wunmi Mosaku for Sinners, and Tiana Taylor for One Battle After Another. I have no idea who is winning this. I really don't. It really could be anyone. It really could be anyone. I haven't seen... So, Elle Fanning and Inga Ibsdottir Lilius, it's kind of hard to see whether there's vote splitting because, again, Guild Awards and voting for, international features. So it's been hard to say okay, I actually don't know if Elle Fanning or Inga Ibsdottir Lilius has a lot of traction behind them. But also Neon has not been campaigning them nearly as much as they've been campaigning movies like The Secret Agent. But I mean, really, all 5 nominees here could win, and I would not be surprised. Amy Madigan has a lot of industry rapport. Everybody knows that she's a fantastic actor. Everyone knows she probably deserves it by this point, and she's taking this really new and interesting role, and she has Warner Brothers campaign dollars behind her, and I think that she has like a solid shot of winning this thing. And she's in Weapons, which is like a horror movie in a very horror positive year for the Oscars. We have Wumi Mosaku, who uh was very good in Sinners, squeaked out that nomination, but now is gaining traction even more. And then Tiana Taylor seems to be an industry frontrunner, but just the campaign for One Battle After Another has been so lackluster. Can it carry Tiana Taylor to the top when Warner Brothers is spending their money elsewhere? There's positives and negatives to every um there's positives and negatives to every actress here. So I'm going to go with my gut and say that I want to, and I both think and want to, that Amy Madigan will win this category. She will, and I want her to. That's been my gut since before the nominations even came out, and after the nominations came out, it really didn't help clarify anything for me. So I'm just gonna roll with it. Amy Madigan all the way. Now let's roll into actor in a leading role. The nominees are Timothy Chalamet for Marty Supreme, Leonardo DiCaprio for One Battle After Another, Ethan Hawke for Blue Moon, Michael B. Jordan for Sinners, and Wagner Moura for The Secret Agent. This is a very stacked cast of performances. I wouldn't be mad if any of these won. I think the campaign for Timothy Chalamet has been great, but so many people are running smear campaigns on this guy. But the thing is, I'm not hearing a lot of love for Leonardo DiCaprio. Big frontrunner, big precursors here. We had the BAFTAs, the British Academy Film and Television Awards. Timothy Chalamet, Leonardo DiCaprio, these guys were all up for awards there. The person who won is Robert Aramayo for the British film I Swear. That doesn't really help us in predicting this year's Oscars. And then you look at the actor awards, and Michael B. Jordan won after not really having won any precursors. It's weird. Leonardo DiCaprio, it doesn't seem like he has a lot of energy behind him. Michael B. Jordan only just got that juice, and by this point, Oscar voting is already closed. How many ballots did that change? Maybe it's showing that there was more of a tendency towards Michael B. Jordan, but at this point, it feels more like nobody in this category wants to win than that everybody can win. So, like, I don't know. It's possible in my eyes for Wagner Moura to sneak through here, but I don't think so. So look, I want Michael B. Jordan to win this. I think Timothy Chalamet still has this. At this point, it's a career Oscar, and he's only 30, and he knows it's a career Oscar. And he deserves one by this point. So, like, I think that they're going to take this opportunity to give it to Timothy Chalamet, despite the numerous smear campaigns that have been run against him for his odd way of campaigning. Definitely. Let's move on to actress in a leading role. The nominees are Jessie Buckley for Hamnet, Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, Kate Hudson for Song Sung Blue, Renata Reinsve for Sentimental Value, and Emma Stone for Begonia. So how did Kate Hudson get in here? Because, like, these are four really good performances, and then everybody expected Chase Infinity for One Battle After Another to sneak in here. But no, we don't have a One Battle After Another representation, and we also don't have Sinners representation. What actress in a leading role ends up being most of the time is that when a woman is a main character in a movie, that actress can get nominated, but there's no co-leads, women and men, in movies too often now, at least not how they're submitted. But Chase Infinity was a co-lead with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they submitted her as such. This category is locked. Jessie Buckley is winning, and she deserves to win. I want her to win. She's so unbelievably good in Hamnet. And that's not even to say that other performances here aren't good. Rose Byrne gives a great performance. Renata Reinsve gives a great performance. But Jessie Buckley has this one in the bag. I don't think Kate Hudson deserves the win. I don't think Song Sung Blue coheres on a lot of levels, on a screenplay level, on a performance level. I don't think it totally coheres. And I don't think that she deserved the nomination for this, and especially not over Chase Infinity. So yeah, Jesse Buckley for both answers. Now we move into the final two, starting with directing. And directing, I always have trouble announcing first because it's directing is typically the top five for Best Picture. So just keep that in mind when you hear these nominations. The nominees are Hamnet, directed by Chloe Zhao, Marty Supreme, directed by Josh Safdie, One Battle After Another, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, Sentimental Value, directed by Joachim Trier, and Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler. And this is where the dominance of One Battle After Another starts to show its hand. One Battle After Another is winning director. Paul Thomas Anderson has an overdue narrative running for him. He's been nominated quite a few times. A lot of people feel like he should have won in 2007 for There Will Be Blood, but was strong armed by um, No Country for Old Men, the Coen brothers, which, two excellent movies. So I've heard. I haven't seen No Country, but I've heard such good things about both of them. It would be hard for me to pick. But yeah, like at this point, he's just made a movie that a lot of people are considering his best, and if not his best, then the best of the decade at the very least. And it doesn't feel like there's really a shot for any other movie. The only glimpse of hope that any of these movies has is that Sinners won Best Ensemble, but ultimately One Battle After Another won DGA and PGA and everything else. So just like one precursor against all the rest of them. If it happens, I wouldn't be upset because I actually think Ryan Coogler deserves this Oscar. So if it happens, I wouldn't be upset, but I doubt it will happen. And then we move into Best Picture. These are the final nominees, and the nominees here are producers. We have Begonia, Ed Gein and Andrew Lowe, Yorgos Lanthimos, Emma Stone, and Lars Knudsen, producers. F1, Chad Oman, Brad Pitt, Didi Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner, Joseph Kosinski, and Jerry Bruckheimer, producers. Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro, J. Miles Dale, and Scott Stuber, producers. Hamnet, Liza Marshall, Pippa Harris, Nicholas Gonda, Steven Spielberg, and Sam Mendes, producers. Marty Supreme, Eli Bush, Ronald Bronstein, Josh Safdie, Anthony Katagas, and Timothy Chalamet, producers. One Battle After Another, Adam Somner, Sarah Murphy, and Paul Thomas Anderson, producers. The Secret Agent, Emily Lesclaw, producer. Sentimental Value, Maria Eckerhovd and Andrea Bernstein-Ottmar, producers. Sinners, Zinzi Kugler, Sev Ohanian, and Ryan Coogler, producers. Train Dreams, Marissa McMahon, Teddy Schwartzman, Will Janowitz, Ashley Schleifer, and Michelle Heimler, producers. One Battle After Another will win. It's a foregone conclusion by this point. Again, every other precursor except for Sinners, or except for actor awards, it's won. I think that gives it gives a pretty good shot of winning. I think it does win here. I think this belongs to Sinners. Sinners is my favorite movie of the year. And yeah, I mean, other nominees, Begonia was good, but not Best Picture. I mean, it's Yorgos Lanthimos, and I feel like when Yorgos Lanthimos releases a movie now, Beyond Kinds of Kindness, it kind of gets just kept in the conversation for a while, especially if Emma Stone is in it. It never felt like it had any shot to win. It felt like it wanted to have a shot to win, but it never felt like it did. F1 is a very good movie, very formulaic, and but it's formulaic, and Joseph Kosinski knows how to do that formula. He kind of has it down to a science at this point, and he films the hell out of it, and it's just it is very, very good. Frankenstein, I have a weird relationship with Frankenstein. I think it's good. It is probably the worst of the Best Picture nominees, but it is good. And I just don't think it does a very good job adapting the book. Hamnet is very good, and if it wins, I won't be upset, but it won't win. Marty Supreme, another movie that I will not be upset if it wins. Again, it won't win, but it's one of my favorites of 2025. One Battle After Another, I don't think should win. I feel like if it wins, it will not be remembered fondly. It'll kind of just be like a knee-jerk reaction pick, which might be one reason to go for Sinners. The Academy does tend to like to pick movies that they think will look good in a trophy case, movies that they think will still be relevant in, forget 10 years, 50 years. and I think that might be Sinners for them. But I'm hesitant to suggest that because I don't even know if that's true, like if that'll even happen. Um, The Secret Agent, unfortunately, The Secret Agent and Sentimental Value, unfortunately, the Oscars are not kind to foreign films. I believe only one foreign language film has ever won Best Picture, and that was Parasite, which was a fantastic movie. But yeah, unfortunately, they're not typically kind to foreign language films. Sinners, I want to win, but I think it's a solid second place, but I don't think it wins. And Train Dreams, I do like. Um, I know why it was nominated for Best Picture. I wouldn't have put it there. But yeah, so that's my list. I'm just gonna quickly run through all my predictions so that you have them in one place. I'm gonna start from the bottom of this app and go up. So live action short, I want Two People Exchanging Saliva to win, and I think Two People Exchanging Saliva will win. Animated short, I want The Girl Who Cried Pearls to win, and I think Butterfly will win. Documentary short, I want The Devil Is Busy to win, but I think All the Empty Rooms will win. Original song, I want Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters to win, and I think Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters will win. Score, I want Sinners to win, and I think Sinners will win. Sound, I want Sirat to win, and I think F1 will win. Visual effects, I want Avatar Fire and Ash to win, and I think Avatar Fire and Ash will win. Makeup and hairstyling, I want The Ugly Stepsister to win, and I think Frankenstein will win. Uh, Costume design, I want Frankenstein to win, and I think Frankenstein will win. Production design, I want Frankenstein to win, and I think Frankenstein will win. Editing, I want Marty Supreme to win, and I think One Battle After Another will win. Cinematography, I want Frankenstein to win, and I think One Battle After Another will win. Animated feature, I want K-Pop Demon Hunters to win, and I think K-Pop Demon Hunters will win. Documentary feature, I want The Perfect Neighbor to win, and I think The Perfect Neighbor will win. International feature, I want Sentimental Value to win, and I think Sentimental Value will win. Casting, I want Marty Supreme to win, and I think Marty Supreme will win. Adapted screenplay, I want Hamnet to win, and I think One Battle After Another will win. Original screenplay, I want Sinners to win, and I think Sinners will win. Supporting actor, I want Jacob Elordi to win, but I think Stellan Skarsgård will win. Supporting actress, I want Amy Madigan to win, and I think Amy Madigan will win. Actor, I want Michael B. Jordan to win, but I think Timothée Chalamet will win. Actress, I want Jessie Buckley to win, and I think Jessie Buckley will win. Director, I want Ryan Coogler to win, but I think Paul Thomas Anderson will win. And picture, I want Sinners to win, but I think One Battle After Another will win. Uh, so those are my predictions for the Oscars. Do you disagree with them? Do you agree with them? Do you have anything else to say? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and yeah, we might get to them on an episode of the Weekly Spoiler Review that we will be recording later on. And yeah, you get to share some of my picks with my unfortunately absent co-hosts. Speaking of my co-hosts, let's jump into Letterboxd plugs. I am Threnv on Letterboxd. That is THRNV. I probably will. So I definitely have reviews up for the 47 Oscar movies that I have seen, and depending on when you watch this, if you check on my profile, I might even have reviews up for the 3 ones that I hadn't, because I will catch up with them, but I wanted to get this recorded early because the Oscars are so timely. If you want to check out Max's Letterboxd, that's MJ Spiegel, MJSPIEGEL. He has reviews. They're very good. And if you want to check out Logan's Letterboxd, that is at Invaded Films. That is INVADEDFILMS. And then also check out our Instagram, which is new, and I'm probably going to mispronounce it, and Max is going to get mad at me, but I think it is at post_credits podcast for exclusive content and fun skits and very fun, good stuff. And yeah, so with all of that being said, roll credits.